In the crowded chaos of Terminal C, where rolling suitcases roared like restless thunder and hurried footsteps drowned out every human whisper, a frail elderly woman stood trembling beside Gate 27, silently begging for help no one cared to give. Her hands moved with desperation, her suitcase lay toppled at her feet, and her worried eyes searched every passing face for someone, anyone, who would understand the language she couldn't speak. People brushed past her like she was invisible, too busy, too impatient, too wrapped in their own worlds to see the panic in her trembling fingers. And yet, not one person stopped. Not one person cared. Not one person realized she was deaf, alone, and slowly breaking down. If you believe kindness still matters in this world, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kind Hearts Corner, because stories like this remind us how powerful a single compassionate act can be. Jack, a 36-year-old single dad, had learned long ago what it felt like to be overlooked by the world. He was the man people assumed had it easy because he carried his burdens quietly. The man who worked double shifts, packed school lunches at midnight, and hid his aching loneliness behind the smile he saved for his daughter. His wife, Emma, had passed away 5 years earlier after a long battle no one truly understood, and in the silence she left behind, he taught himself sign language just to speak to the memory of the woman he couldn't save. Raising 8-year-old Lily alone had become his purpose, his anchor, and at times the only light he could still believe in. That morning, while tightening the straps of Lily's tiny backpack, Jack felt something tug inside him. The same instinct that used to pull him toward Emma when she struggled to communicate in a loud, uncaring world. He looked up and saw the elderly woman standing alone, trying to sign to the airline staff, who couldn't understand her. Her fingers fluttered like frightened birds, trying to form words that landed nowhere. She tried pointing at the flight screens, at her ticket, at her dead phone, but every effort was met with confusion or impatience. A woman behind a counter spoke louder, as if volume could force comprehension, and another person nearby rolled their eyes as though her fear was an inconvenience. Jack felt his chest tighten. He had seen this before. Emma struggling in restaurants, at hospitals, at banks. People pretending not to see because understanding required effort. Jack knew the loneliness of silence, and no matter how much time passed, he could never forget the feeling Emma used to carry in her eyes when the world shut her out. Lily tugged his sleeve gently, her small voice barely reaching above the airport noise, telling him the old lady looked sad. Jack followed her gaze again and saw the woman's hands shaking harder now. Her eyes glistened with helplessness as she kept repeating the same motion, hoping someone would figure out her silent plea. Jack stood without thinking, driven not by obligation, but by the part of his heart that refused to watch someone suffer the way Emma once did. He walked toward the woman, kneeling so she wouldn't feel intimidated, and slowly moved his hands in a gesture that made her entire world pause. The moment she recognized sign language, her body sagged with relief, like someone had finally opened a door she had been trapped behind for too long. Her hands moved quickly, explaining that her son was supposed to meet her. Her phone stopped working, and the gate number had changed, leaving her lost in a place where her voice couldn't reach. Jack nodded, signing each reassurance with steady hands, reminding her she wasn't alone now. The woman's tears slipped down her cheeks, but they weren't tears of fear anymore. They were tears of being seen. Tears of finally being understood after hours of panic. Lily approached quietly, slipping her small hand into Jack's, watching with wide-eyed wonder as her father spoke with his hands. She didn't understand the signs, but she understood kindness, and she felt it radiating from him like warm sunlight. Just then, a tall man in a charcoal suit came rushing down the terminal, scanning the crowd with wild, frantic eyes. He was the type of man people moved out of the way for without being asked. Sharp jaw, powerful posture, presence like a storm barely holding itself together. His briefcase swung at his side as he searched desperately, breathless and almost frantic. When his eyes finally landed on the elderly woman, he froze, as if the entire airport dissolved around him. Jack stepped back gently as the man sprinted toward her, dropping to his knees and pulling her into a trembling embrace. The woman clung to him, hands moving rapidly as she signed her relief, her fear, her gratitude. The man's voice cracked with apologies as he held her shoulders, Realizing how terrified she must have been, the son, an influential someone known to many, turned and saw Jack for the first time. Not as a stranger, not as someone passing by, but as the man who stepped in when the world didn't. His eyes softened, the tension in his expression fading as he understood what had happened. The elderly woman began signing about Jack, her face bright with appreciation. The CEO watched the graceful movements of her hands, then looked back at Jack with an expression of disbelief and gratitude that couldn't fit into words. In that moment, he saw not just a stranger, but a man who understood compassion in a way money or position could never teach. Jack stood quietly, brushing Lily's hair behind her ear as she leaned against his leg. He never did things for recognition. He never expected thanks. But the CEO approached him anyway, offering his hand with a sincerity people in power rarely showed. Jack shook it, humble and unsure, while the elderly woman touched his arm with trembling gratitude. She signed that he had saved her mourning, her peace, maybe even her hope in people. Jack felt something warm spread through him, the kind of warmth he thought he had lost when Emma died. The CEO watched the exchange and realized he was standing in front of a man the world had likely overlooked too many times. A man raising a child alone, carrying silent battles no one could see, and yet still finding room inside his heart to help a stranger others ignored. In Jack's gentle honesty, the CEO found something he respected deeply, not polished success, not ambition, but human decency. That rare quality that cannot be bought. As the announcement for boarding echoed softly through the terminal, the CEO offered Jack something unexpected, a chance to work with his company in a flexible role focused on accessibility and communication inclusion. Jack blinked in disbelief, his thoughts spinning. He wasn't looking for an opportunity. He wasn't looking for reward. But life sometimes hands you exactly what you never thought you deserved. Lily tugged his hand, smiling up at him with that fearless innocence children often carry, reminding him that it was okay to accept goodness when it came. So he nodded, unsure, emotional, hopeful. The CEO's mother signed one last message to Jack before leaving. A thank you deeper than language, a blessing stitched with the quiet beauty of someone who had finally been heard. As Jack and Lily walked toward their gate, hand in hand, the noise of the airport felt different, less like chaos, more like a reminder that even in crowded places, small acts of kindness can echo louder than anything else. Jack glanced at his daughter and whispered that the world becomes gentler every time someone chooses to see the person others overlook. Lily squeezed his hand tighter, proud of the father she had, proud of the kindness he carried, proud of the moment she witnessed. And as they disappeared down the hallway toward their flight, the CEO stood beside his mother, watching the pair with a gratitude that would stay with him a long time. He knew he had witnessed something rare, a moment that restores faith, a moment that reminds us kindness is not weakness but strength, a moment where a single quiet act changed everything. If this story touched your heart in any way, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kind Hearts Corner, because your support helps keep these stories of compassion alive. Before we end, tell me in the comments, do you believe kindness can change a life?